Thanks everybody for taking time to join us this afternoon. My name is Boon Kee, I'm from ISS. Today's topic is really about the role of product management in digital transformation across many organizations. Today I've invited a guest speaker, a good friend of mine called Yong from Ernst & Young, to come and share some of his experience with regard to engaging with customer on digital transformation journeys and how he sees product management role that is very important in those engagements. But before he comes, I'd like to spend about 20 minutes to share some thoughts why I think product management is an important role for organizations today in today's digital age. I have 3 agenda items really focusing on this new emergent role of a digital product manager. So I'll focus on the role itself, what are the capabilities, and as a takeaway, I'll talk about what are the key characteristics and traits of a great digital product manager. When you look at companies adopting digital transformation, there's a lot of hype. But you take all away the hype, it's really not about new technologies, but how to use it as a tool to create customer experience. This morning, my colleague, Vicky, has talked about the importance of customer experience. I remember the 3 C's. Nowadays, a lot of consumers are very demanding. They want more choices, more control, more convenience. They're also looking at personalization, authenticity, privacy, transparency. So you see there's a lot of digital threat faced by a lot of companies. But at the end of the day, what's important is really to drive that customer experience when you deliver product and services. And I see product managers play a very unique role in that delivery. And it's a digital threat that is real because there are more now competition. Digitalization has lowered entry barriers. There are a lot more cross-industry and cross-border cooperation as well as competition. A lot of companies are reinventing themselves, looking at beyond their industry to cooperate. Earlier in the morning, my colleague Felicitas at Social shared some of the platform business and ecosystems. And I see this as many companies looking at reinventing themselves to look at evolving business models to help face this threat. So you see, really at the end of the day, it's not about product and services, but really the customer experience. And that role of a digital product manager is very important. I have put in these 3 circles to talk about 3 key elements that I see digital product manager play in. It's the intersection of the customer, business, and technology. If you remember, IDEO is a company that has taken the world by storm with regard to how do you use design thinking and how do you design and create winning products. And combine it with their trifecta of desirability, viability, and feasibility. A great product idea can be successful if it contains 3 of these elements. One is you have created a desirable product or solution for your customer based on the needs of your customer. Second, you have created a viable solution that's built on a profitable and sustainable business model. And thirdly, equally important is the technology side. You have to create a feasible product based on the capability of your team and leveraging digitalization. And I see really the role of a digital product manager is really about upgrading the experience, not just the product and service. So how do you create this capability? It's faced by a lot of organizations. I see 2 key challenges when they try to build this capability. One is really, I see a shift for companies moving from a project-oriented model to a product-driven model when they engage initiatives to embed that capability to leverage on digitalization. You see there's a shift from creating custom bespoke system to really creating standardized, repeatable products that can scale and sustain the business model. The role of a project manager looks at delivering on time, on target. And the approach to a traditional waterfall tends to take too long. More organizations are favoring the product approach to look at leading cross-functional teams. They are small, agile, nimble, incorporating user experience design, DevOps, as well as product experimentation and iteration to continue reinvent themselves. Recently, due to the COVID situation, I believe most of you are very familiar with this safe entry application that we use. During the early days of the lockdown, I remember I have to, on a daily basis, get food for my family. So I would have to go to visit the malls, the coffee shops, as well as the food courts to buy back food. So I remember when they roll out this safe entry application, I find it very useful, all right? So you go to a choke point of a mall, all right, to register that you enter the mall. So you have a QR code for you to scan in. So I remember doing it, and then when you want to exit, you also scan the QR code to indicate the exit. So it was fine and dandy for a while. Then I started to feel that, hey, this is taking a bit too much effort. Every time I check in, why do I need to check out? And later they improved the product by allowing this ability to check in, check out without doing scanning anymore. And on top of it, when you have the SingPass mobile application, you find that all your particulars are already embedded inside. So when you do actually check in, check out, you can actually do it in advance before even reaching. So after parking my car, my wife and we will just use this application to really log on to check in. So you don't have to line up in a long queue. And that speed up the experience. And later the enhancement was even to include check in, check out for your family members. For households who have children and aged, it's very useful. If they do not know how to use this application, the parents can do it for them. So you see, really, from a product management perspective, when you roll out such applications, it's not a one-off. You're actually improving the experience over time, all right? So really, the mindset shift has to change from a project to a product mindset. And that is one key challenge faced by many organizations. I see the second challenge is really for organizations going through digital transformation in adopting two different but yet coherent style of work. One focusing on stability and the other on agility. Think about it, a lot of brick and mortar and big MNCs started their journey as a small startup years ago. As a startup, they have to do trial error. And when they've created a particular product that works and decided a market niche that they want to really position their product, they will scale it. And over time, they grow. So they have to have governance structure. And that's where they scale into corporate MNCs. So a lot of times, they scale by having optimization, economies of scale. So the challenge really for such brick and mortar companies, they are big. They need to survive in the digital age by having the nimble and agile aspect as well. Because they are facing threat from emerging markets and startups that are able to scale very fast because they leverage on the cost effectiveness of digital channels. Likewise, a lot of MCs need to do that as well. And I see that as the second challenge faced by most organizations. Now, product managers tend to thrive in a lot of startups. And that's because primarily they themselves are what we call digital natives. They literally grew up with digital. But how about product managers in MNCs and big companies that has been around for 30 or 40 years, or even 100 years? Like the General Electric itself. Really, how do you provide your team with a repeatable process to be able to consistently design and create and launch winning products? I see a digital product management framework is needed. I've been teaching product managers for over 7 years in ISS. And I would like to introduce you to this framework that is shown on the slide, all right? It's no by means the best out there, but I think there are many out there that are pretty much similar. But this framework I would like to introduce because this is something I think is useful for companies who wants to develop the product management capability within the organization. There are 5 pillars that kind of give you a chronological order about how do you launch a product, right? All the way to maturity, to retirement, right? So as a new product manager, I need to look at product opportunity, product strategy, planning, development, and launching the product, and supporting it, and eventually retiring the product as well as extending it. Now, I'd like to call out a few key things to take note in regard to this framework that's important. One, of course, is really looking at the business case itself during opportunity. You need to be able to get your stakeholders in place, all right, to drive that business case. Second, you need to go into strategy in terms of positioning your product, driven by your North Star of your company. And from a planning development perspective, a lot of emphasis is now on agility. So you need to exercise things like learning the modern techniques of developing your products through product user experience design, as well as product experimentation and evolution and iteration. And lastly, when you launch a product, it's equally important to look at metrics to help you drive decisions across the life cycle of your product. So you need to be able to extract data with regard to the adoption of the products. You need to access data analytics to help you drive insights to make decisions to iterate and improve your product over time, right? From a product leadership aspect, we have 4 components: innovation management, product talent management, team model, as well as stakeholder orchestration. I see innovation management is closely tied with product management because essentially we are trying to solve problems for our customer. You need to think about talent management. How do you access the skills, experience, knowledge within organizations, and to be able to develop the expertise of product management? A lot of companies that are big MCs, they will have people that has what we call organizational dexterity to be able to have stability and agility. So they need to acquire new talents in terms of product management. And it's important for them to go through this framework to build up that capability. The team model really focuses on cross-functional leadership across organization, because you're looking at different stakeholders. So the stakeholder orchestration really looks at the 5 pillars where you look at product from inception to launch to retirement. What are the key stakeholders that you need to work closely with, right? So this is a quick run through of the framework, which I thought will be good to share with the audience here. And then we also cover a little bit about capability metrics that looks at how organizations who want to develop that capability focus on really 5 areas in terms of building up that capability, right? So I've listed knowledge as one area, skills and experience another. There's also the collaborative soft skills that is needed. I mentioned earlier the stakeholder orchestration. Really, end of the day, how do you engage the different value contributors in the whole value chain of your product delivery? Now, business and technical skills are equally important, right? So as a good digital product manager, you need to have business acumen, right? So you need to understand what are the business model, what are the metrics needed to drive success for your products. And from a technical skills, you're looking at knowledge and experience in system thinking, agile, engineering, and design thinking. As a takeaway, I would like to also share with you what I see are 7 traits of the great digital product manager. Right? So as a strategic thinker, I refer back to the trifecta that I mentioned about really the intersection between customer, business, and technology. A strategic thinker mindset will help to tie up these 3 elements to create what I call an entrepreneurial approach to product delivery. Second, as a businessman, you need to look at evolving business models. As a technologist, you may not be the best programmer out there, but what is needed is the technical skills to lead a development team, to be able to interact intelligently with your team. Customer advocacy really is, end of the day, looking at understanding customer needs, looking at user-centric customer design, user design experience. And cross-functional leadership is very important because you are leading a cross-functional team which has different contributors to the whole value chain of your delivery. Data storytelling is equally important. I mentioned about after launching a product, you need to ensure that you are able to keep track of the adoption of your product. So you need to be able to use data analytics to help you drive decisions for product iteration and improvement over time. And lastly, as an iterative experimenter, you need to be able to shape the direction of your product and service based on that constant feedback from your user, from the customer, right? So at this time, I would like to invite our guest speaker, Yong, to share with you some of his thoughts around why product management is very important in digital transformation. He will share with you a couple of use cases as well as some thoughts around what are the key success factors for digital transformation. All right, Yong. Thank you.
Thank you, Boon Kee. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yong. I'm from EY Consulting, based out from Singapore. So today, right, as this segment of the presentation, I'll be focusing on 3 areas, for the rest of the 30 minutes plus. So the first one I will talk about is more on the digital transformation trend in the market today, based on the various engagement that I've had with various organizations out there. The second portion, I will talk a bit about some of the use case on digital product management. Last but not least, I will cover some of the key success factors that I've seen that organization has actually embarked on to make them very successful in terms of product management. So just a bit about EY, right? I think most of you knows that EY is one of the big 4 consulting firm out in the market. That's very true. The focus very much, we look at assurance, which is the audit part of the business, finance, tax, as well as the transactions like M&A for our customer. The other portion, the other service line that EY also cover is what we call consulting, okay? And what consulting does is really to focus on the key complex issues of our clients and help them to capitalize opportunities in order to grow and optimize their business. And in EY, we focus on a couple of core areas in our consulting area. The typical finance, supply chain, as well as customer services, right? These are the bread and butter for a lot of our customers, okay, for the organization out there. They want us to help them to look at what are the processes that they might be able to improve upon, and we do that for them as well. The other portion that we look at is obviously from a business and operation perspective. We help them to look at how they can improve their business model. We help them to look at how they can actually transform new business model in order to, maybe get new business or new channels of businesses. One very important portion of consulting in EY is really focusing on digital, cybersecurity, data analytics, as well as the whole transformation, technology transformation as a whole. And that is the area that I've been engaging a lot of our clients, which is why we do a lot of digital transformation roadmap and help them in their journey itself. So what exactly is digital transformation? Okay, it's a very big word, I know. Digital can be anything from turning things from paper-based to non-paper-based, or it can be the latest and greatest like, smart building, blockchain, RPA, things like that, okay? So business transformation is really about putting in technology in an organization in order to help them to solve some of these problems within their organization, okay? And the key thing to think about is how we can align the strategic objectives of the company through this transformation journey. And what are some of these strategic objectives, right? In my slide, I've shown around 5 of them. Okay, it's not exhaustive, but these are the typical ones that big companies or even startups, they start to look at. Simplification of their processes, simplification of their, human resource organization, okay? Standardization of their business model. Standardization across the country, across the different BU that they have. And all these are really to drive a couple of things, right? Mainly is to drive efficiency within their operation, as well as, very importantly, is to drive compliance. Compliance, it might be within the organization, there are certain policy that everyone needs to adhere to, or it might be because of local and statutory requirements. So it's coming from that compliance angle. And recently, right, in the last couple of years, sustainability is also one very key component that a lot of organizations are looking at. But as you can imagine, right, all these strategic objectives are usually established by the C-suite, all right? And a lot of companies, what happens is that after a few years, probably the C-suite, they either go on rotation or, they move on to other companies. So these strategic objectives somehow will change over time, okay? But the North Star will still be there. So if you look at my slide now, we typically will try to establish what's the baseline for the company, okay? Because that is what you need to know. You need to know where you are in order for you to get to where you want to go to, all right? So establishing the baseline, then they think about how to improve the various areas in order to be aligned with their strategic objective, okay? And obviously, subsequently, is really look at how to optimize as well as transform the whole organization as a whole, all right? But again, digital transformation is not so straightforward, right? It's not about, all of us sitting together in a boardroom and deciding what is the digital transformation, okay? I will share a bit more in my subsequent slides. So for a lot of companies out there, right, digital transformation is really no longer a question of must I embark on this journey? No, it's no longer about that. Because if they don't do that, they realize that if they don't do that, they will be out of business. So it actually becomes a very important element of their business continuity plan. Okay? So 3 stages that people usually look at, how they can establish the foundation. And these are what we call the must do, right? These are the things that you must do in order for you to still run your business as usual. Okay, so it might mean, streamlining your processes before putting certain digital technology inside, like RPA, in order to automate your processes to achieve higher efficiency. The next step that people will look at is how they can extend their core. And what that means is, looking at new business model, how they can get more business through other channels. So this is what we mean by establishing the foundation before you look at extension of the core and through new business model. Okay, obviously the North Star that everyone is looking at is how you can further enhance and grow the company. And this is what we call the new improvement. The new improvement on top of all these new business model. So that day I was just having a chat with, someone in the education sector. So he was telling me that, wow, because of the COVID-19 situation, right, the students and teachers are not allowed to come together in a physical location, for the lessons and tuitioning. So after a while, they realized that, hey, this can't go on, right? Because this pandemic, might drag on for the rest of the year. Okay, so they decided that, hey, just like the rest of the competition, right? Everything needs to be virtual, needs to be remote. And the challenge with that is that doing remote session, how are they able to achieve the same efficiency, if not greater efficiency? Does the parents, of these students, are they willing to still send their children to all these education institute? I'm paying money, but I'm doing things virtually. How do I know that my kids are still having the same results as if they are attending physical classes? Okay, so these are some of the challenges that, real life challenges that the different sectors, even the education sector, they are facing. So no longer is it a question of must I. They are in fact looking at how they can do it faster. Okay, because in the market, whoever can do anything faster and better, basically will be able to command a larger market share. So instead of just going through the typical 3 phases, they decided that, hey, we should actually look at new business model now. Okay, the earlier we can do that, the earlier we can look at new improvement in order to grow my businesses. Okay, and this is exactly what they did, right? Okay, for a lot of the organizations out there, this is exactly what they did. They look at new business model and they start to look at new improvement in order to enhance and grow their businesses. Okay, one very important thing to think about is that all these new business models, right, are here to stay. It's not because of this, COVID-19 pandemic, which might last for the next few months. These are actually new business model that can help the company to grow additional revenue streams. Okay, so it's no longer about thinking the short term. We need to think long term. And the last but not least, right, not only doing it faster, they want to also achieve more within the same duration, the same time duration. Okay, so instead of achieving just the new improvement by the end of 3 phases, organizations out there are trying to accelerate things, right, in order to evolve beyond what they can actually imagine. Okay, but the very important thing to think about is coming back to what we want to cover today on product management. A lot of the products out there people are managing them as a project, which is not totally wrong. Okay, they need to manage it from a project, but they also need to put in from a product management mindset as well. Okay, how often have we seen companies develop products? Okay, they make sure that the development of this product are within the budget, within the time frame, and successfully launch. Okay, but what happened is that after a few months, they realized that their customers stopped using it. Okay, and the product become obsolete. So that's a total waste of effort and time by the organization, right? And when I talk about customers, I'm not only talking about external customers. Customers can also be internal users within the organization as well. So tying back to what Boon Kee has shared earlier on the various components from product opportunity to product launch, right? I have here a couple of, I would say, guiding principle, okay, key guiding principle for digital product management. Okay, we need to really bring in the relevant team right at the beginning, throughout the project, in order to make sure that all the strategic objectives and the feedback are taken in. Okay, so feedback is very important because in order for you to be able to come out with the relevant product at the end of your product management, right, you need to constantly be able to get in the feedback and to be able to tweak your product. Okay, interactive visualization, that's also very important. No longer are we, talking about a project and you can only see the project at the end of 6 months or 12 months. Okay, customers are looking to see how they can look at certain wireframe or certain prototype along the way of the project, so that it again drives back to my point on feedback. With this visualization, right, customers will be able to give real-time feedback so that the product team will be able to tweak accordingly. Okay, there are other ways of running all these workshops, right? I mean, design thinking is something that is very popular these days. Okay, agile workshop, design thinking, these are the things that actually will be able to generate ideas, to get everyone ideas together and to come up with a product that everyone say that they actually own. Okay, another very important element is obviously the executive buy-in. Okay, the executive buy-in, key stakeholders needs to be onboarded early in the journey and they need to be engaged throughout the entire journey. We have very often seen key stakeholders coming in for project kickoff. and you only see them at the end when the project actually go live. Okay, this is not right, because we need to keep the executive updated on what is happening in order for them to also, don't forget that they also need to give the required feedback to make sure that it's aligned back to the strategic objective. Okay, in my next couple of slides, right, I will share some use case that I've seen out there, okay, and we can discuss a bit more on that later on in the Q&A session. Okay, the first use case is really on the usage of blockchain for one of the organization who used to do things very paper-based. Okay, paper-based and non-digital, I would say. Okay, so this organization, let's just call them ABC, right? What happened to them is that in order to engage with their supplier, they still go through very traditional emails communication. Okay, so whenever they engage a supplier, the supplier need to give them information like bank details, what is the mailing address, where is the ship to address, and all these are communicated through emails. Okay, then what happened is that the ABC accountant as well as the treasury group will then need to go into their ERP system to put in all this information in order for the transaction to go on. Okay, but what happened for this organization is that they encountered certain hackers in the market who intersected this email communication. And in the end, the wrong information are being maintained inside the ERP system, okay? And the wrong payment is made to the hackers, right? So this is one big lesson learned from them, right? It's actually a big wake-up call. They realized that, hey, this can't happen. This can't keep happening. Rather than putting in more security in their email system, why not we think of something, as part of our digital journey? So they started to explore the leverage of blockchain. The key attribute of blockchain is not only about cryptocurrency. There are other attributes like immutability, the sequentials of the information being pumped into the blockchain itself. So they decided that, hey, let's try this. Let's do a quick proof of concept on how blockchain can actually help us in this anti-flop situation. Okay, and they exactly did that. The good thing, the right thing that they did was they got in the relevant team right at the beginning of this product management. Okay, and throughout the weeks of proof of concept, the stakeholders continued to be engaged. Okay, they continue to be engaged. They continue to give the feedback as to what they want. And one very important element is they also got in user experience, UI, UX consultant. Okay, through the interface, they realized that, hey, this is not so intuitive for my users. We should tweak it this way, that way. And that's one very important point, because without the right user interface or user experience, right, what will happen is that many a times we see users will actually go back to their old way of doing things. Okay, the old way of doing things, which then undermine the purpose of the whole product management. Okay, so very happy to say that for this particular organization, they went into the POC of creating a blockchain for the purpose of maintaining key supplier information. And through that, they realized that, hey, there's actually a lot of opportunities with blockchain. Let's start to brainstorm a bit more and to put them as part of our entire digital product journey, digital transformation journey. And this is exactly what they did. Okay, so they have come out with a lot of ideas of what might be some of the blockchain use case that they want to put into their future phases. So that's one very successful use case that I can share. The second use case that I would like to share is really on operational process automation. Okay, and this is not only for one organization, right? What we have seen is a lot of organizations out there are starting to leverage on automation, okay, or what is commonly known as RPA, robotics process automation, to streamline and automate a lot of their processes, mainly in the areas of finance, HR, IT, or even for supply chain. Okay, so they went through the whole iteration of IDA, pilot, launch the product before they scale the whole project to the whole organization. Okay, so going back to what Boon Kee has shared earlier on, right? The iteration is very important. Okay, the traditional project management is talking about waterfall, whereby we all assume that the users actually know what they want. Okay, the consultants are able to capture 100% of the requirements upfront and will be able to put in the product right at the end. Okay, but we all know that there's certain not truth to that, right? So what organizations start to do is they see this from a product management perspective, start to get the users very much involved right at the beginning. That's what we call the executive buy-in. Okay, identify the process and opportunities that this automation can help in. Continue to qualify as well as prioritize this because there's so much things, right? You can't do everything at the same time. So what are the quick wins or which are the ones with a higher value? Okay, which is back to the point on product management. We look at the value of the outcome. Okay, through the prioritization, they continue to streamline the process, engage the users, engage the stakeholders in order to get the buy-in. Okay, and again, what we say, there's always an element of human touch. You need to communicate to the users on what is coming their way so that they are prepared to do the, in a way, the new job roles, once the automation comes in. Okay, so the development is, you can see that is iteration. There are certain changes to it. Iteration, testing is also iteration because of the development before you launch the whole thing. But a very important thing right at the end, as you can see, is that you need to really go back to the ROI, the return on investment. How are the benefits being realized through this product, right? In order for you to feedback and to be able to scale furthermore. So again, these are, the successful use case that I can share from the product management perspective. Last but not least, right, I would just like to share a couple of key success factors that I've seen works in order to achieve a successful digital transformation journey. The first one is very obvious. Product management is not project management. Many people have this misconception that if I'm a good project manager, I can definitely do product management. Okay, there's some truth to it, but you learn product management not through reading online. Okay, you need to be able to understand what are the different components within a product management cycle in order for you to be a good product manager. That's very important. The second key success factor that I would like to talk about is feedback. Like I mentioned, timely feedback is crucial. You need to get timely feedback throughout the entire journey of your product management. Don't do it towards the end, because if you do it towards the end, it's a very high likelihood that there will need to be a lot of rework, and you do not want that. The third key success factor here is have a very clear product strategy, as well as the definition of what is success. Okay, this is very important. Again, it ties back to my previous slide on strategic objective. You need to have a very clear product strategy in order for you to know what are you actually trying to develop. Okay, and you also need to know what is success. Okay, is success developing the product on time, or is success about getting your users satisfied with the product and them committing to using the product in the days to come? Last but not least, the fourth key success factor that I cannot overemphasize is do not underestimate key components like job redesign, UI UX, in this case is our user interface and user experience, as well as other key elements like change management. Digital transformation is not only about technology. It's a lot about people. Okay? If your people are not satisfied with the product, they are not so into this whole digital transformation journey, I can tell you that a lot of people will not be using whatever that you develop from a product management perspective. Okay, so job redesign, UI UX, change management. Those are key elements in order for you to have a very successful digital transformation journey. All right, with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. I would like to invite Boon Kee back for the Q&A session.
Thanks, Yong. All right, let's take a look at the Q&A. I see there's one question here. It says, are the products developed for the own use of organization or to sell to other customers? All right, really, I think today's topic on product management deals with both aspects, whether you're developing for the market as well as for the internal. So I see, for example, in ISS, we have retransformed ourselves over the last few years. For example, recently, over the last 2 to 3 years ago, we kind of revamped our staff portal. And our IT took that as a project itself with a product mindset, all right? So this staff portal that we have been using for the last maybe 25 to 30 years is kind of antiquated, right? So there's a need to revamp. And one of the objectives was to really put in a new digital workplace for our staff. One, of course, is to really reduce email clutter, as well as to look at ensuring people can access the single source of truth when it comes to information, whether it be for classes and for teaching, for exams, or for assessment, right? Now, this initiative was taken as a project, but it was taken with a product mindset. And the reason is because once we roll out the platform, you got to actually engage the users, the staff, in all areas of their work, whether it's management down to operations to teaching staff and non-teaching staff. How do you engage them to use this new platform, right? Really getting the stakeholders involved and then getting feedback to improve, right? So initially, there will be a little bit of, getting the ramp up to learn this new platform, which is on Microsoft SharePoint, for example, right? So this is something we took on, and we wanted actually to continually educate our staff to use. And over the last two to 3 years, we have seen it being used in many areas of our day-to-day work. So precisely that mindset has to go into projects, whether it's internal or external, I think is applicable as well. Okay, I think that's the only question we have, right? Yong, any thoughts?
I think just coming back to the product management angle, right? I think a lot of people are still very confused between project management and product management. Okay, I think what we are trying to say here is that project management is here to stay, okay? But not forgetting that you need to have a change in mindset in order for you to leverage on the elements or components of product management. And again, like the key success factor that I mentioned, right? Product management is not project management. You know, project management is really about cost, timeline, getting things done on time, on target, in good quality, of course. But you need to come in more from a product management in order to ensure that your users are really happy with the final outcome of your product. Yeah, I think that's one key element that we just want to drive across for today's presentation as well.
Right, thank you. Okay, I see there's another question here. And that's what does a project with product mindset means? All right, so earlier I mentioned about this concept of product mindset is really looking at driving continuous improvement, all right? It's not a one-off. If you're delivering a piece of software, like the example I quoted, right? If you're implementing Microsoft SharePoint, a project mindset tends to take on, okay, I must manage on time, on budget, based on the requirements. Now, as what Yong mentioned, the assumption made is that the user themselves know exactly what they want. But in real life, that's not really the case, right? And project managers tends to, wants to complete a project as soon as possible. And they're reluctant to, accommodate changes because that will make changes to their plan, right? So they come up with the best plan and try to execute accordingly. But in real life, that's not the case. And I think really project manager always try to finish and then jump on to the next, new project. But a product mindset really is one that is never done. He stays throughout the product lifecycle, all right? So there are cases when you roll out a system, users use for short time and then, they kind of give up because of the fact that, it becomes outdated and maybe it's not usable. It doesn't conform to what the business requirements that, based on changes in the market. So that product mindset really looks at how to continually improve and to adapt that system that you develop to make sure it's not outdated. And more importantly is to look at how to extend the life cycle of that product to reinvent itself, to extend the life, to look at customer experience and meeting really the needs of the customer.
Okay, I think we have one question here. Can you share some example of job redesign needed to support the change management process? Okay, so like I've shared in my previous slide, right? Going on to the digital transformation journey, what it means is that there'll be various technology being brought into the organization. Let me just take an example, RPA, automation of your processes. So currently, it might mean that you have various staff, maybe from your accounting team. They are keying in certain invoices into your ERP system. So that's their core job, right? Just to make sure that the invoices that they collected are being correctly keyed into the system. But moving forward, if they were to implement robotics process automation, RPA, what it means is that the accountants no longer have to do the manual task of keying into the system. Okay, they can just rely on the robot to actually scan in the details of the invoice into the ERP system. Okay, so what does the accountant do? They no longer have to do this manual keying, right? So that's the aspect where we talk about is job redesign. We need to look at how else can they support the organization. I think in a lot of the transformation journey, people are always worried about themselves being laid off after the project is successful. We have seen that in a lot of organizations. And the commitment that we need to give to our people is that this is a journey to help the company. And we need you to be on this journey together with us. And what it means is that there will be certain job redesign, after the product is successfully launched, and we need your involvement. And like I said, right, executive buy-in, stakeholder engagement needs to be throughout the whole journey. Okay, so what it means is that for this accountant, maybe the role needs to be changed to become just looking at reports, looking at dashboard at the end of this whole product being launched, right? And that is really the higher value work that they can actually look forward to. And with that, right, they will really be more willing to participate in in this journey as well. Yeah. So we need to educate them. We need to communicate to them to let them know what are the new job roles that they will have, after the product is successfully launched.
Okay, I think we have time for just one last question, all right? And this question says, what's the difference between externally hired consultant and the product manager inside the organization? Now, assume that when you hire an external consultant, it's for their expertise, maybe to implement a particular solution for the organization, all right? So I see actually a product manager, if you have one that's in-house, is good because as a product manager, basically your role is really orchestrate the stakeholders, right? So one aspect of it is you have the organization stakeholders to deal with. You understand the pain point, but you also work with a team, right? Be it in-house with a mix of external consultant. with the right expertise. So literally, you are actually a person that needs to be able to lead a cross-functional team from that aspect. Any thoughts, Kok Yong, to this question?
I think you're right, totally with you on that. Yeah.
All right, I think that's the end. Any more questions? Okay. I think, thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Yep.
And please don't forget to do the feedback.
Yeah, we appreciate if you can use the QR code to scan in and give us your feedback. And thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.